Hi and welcome back to this new video. Today I want to share with you 5 mistakes that Japanese beginners make when they first start speaking. I'm pretty sure I made these mistakes when I first started speaking in Japanese, and I know from experience that it is really easy to fix them once you know about them. I think they stem from a lot of people not really understanding the systems behind Japanese, so today I'll point out a few things that you can do to improve your Japanese instantly. Number 1. The te form. If you've studied Japanese for any significant amount of time, then you will have come across the te form either in the textbook or maybe in a book, in an anime. The te form is essential. It is the foundation for the past tense, for a lot of sentence connecting devices, for the conditional. You need to understand the te form and its conjugations. Do whatever it takes to understand how the different verb stems change. I know it's really confusing in the beginning when yomu, to read, suddenly turns into yonde. Like, where does the n come from? Where does the de come from? It doesn't matter. Make sure you learn these rules by heart so that you know which verbs turns into which form. You will need these in the future a lot. You can't get around without the te form. Number 2. The different types of adjectives. If you've done a little bit of grammar study already, then you know that there are 2 types of adjectives, the na and the i adjectives, and that they behave differently. It is a little confusing in the beginning because they do behave differently depending on where in the sentence they are, if they are before a noun, if they are before a verb, if they are at the end of the sentence, whether the sentence is formal or informal. There's a lot of things to keep in mind when you study these, but it is really important to study them really well. So try to get an overview of how they behave in the different environments, because it is really important to understand that it is also a really easy mistake to fix. I know it's a lot in the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, once you understand the different sentence parts, I'm pretty sure that you will figure everything out and your Japanese will be a lot better once you stop making these adjective mistakes. Number 3. A flawed understanding of formal and informal speech. Now hear me out. This is not your fault. I think partly textbooks are to blame for that because they overly simplify the way honorifics work in Japanese, which then leads to learners having a flawed understanding of how it actually works. Just remember that just because you put a des or a must at the end of the sentence does not make the sentence polite necessarily. Let me give you an example. If you go up to your teacher and you go like, sensei, sugei desu. Yes, you put a des at the end of the sentence, and in theory that makes the sentence more polite, but talking to your teacher like that, like sugei, using slang, is generally not the way you want to approach things. So just try to keep in mind that it is not only the sentence final particle that makes the sentence formal or informal. It is also other parts of speech that have that effect. A little bonus for formal and informal speech, and my friend pointed that out to me as well, is that you generally want to try to stay consistent within your conversation. So you don't want to start out the conversation using formal forms, then switching back to informal, and then back to formal. You want to try to keep it either formal or informal. The same goes for if you, for example, write a self-introduction, write a little text about yourself, try to keep it all in one style. Number 4. The overuse of sentence final particles. I know that when you get started speaking, you get all excited about, trying to sound more fluent, and you don't want to sound like a textbook. You don't want to be like, これはペンです. You want to have actual conversations, and you just want it to flow naturally, sound natural. What a lot of people end up doing is that they overuse sentence final particles such as ne, yo, and zo. Now this goes both for text and speech, but you want to try to not overuse the particles. Take this for example. 日本語は難しいですね。日本語の文法も単語も難しいですよね. Put them together in a text and it's just a little too much. You don't want to use sentence final particles at the end of every sentence. Try to use them in moderation. And going back to the previous example, don't use zo when you talk to your teacher or a superior. It's kind of inappropriate. Number 5. Sentence structure and particles. Japanese works very different compared to a lot of the major European languages. In Japanese, you mark words with particles in order to show which part of the sentence it is, whether it is the subject, the object, and so forth. It is therefore really important to understand what each of the particles does on its own, but it is also important to learn the verbs and the particles together. Some verbs require a specific particle, not because it makes sense, but it's just the way it is. Sometimes confusing the particles in a sentence can result in a completely different meaning. This is especially important for passive and causative sentence structures, so make sure you try to remember how these structures work. And there you have it, 5 things that you should keep in mind when trying to speak Japanese. But don't worry, as you practice, these things will come to you more and more naturally, and over time you will get a better understanding of how things should be in a sentence. I hope these tips helped you. Let me know in the comments if you have any more questions or other advice for other people, and I'll see you in the next video.